The unfamiliar world. The alien fleet hovered high above Earth, its massive ships blocking out the sunlight. These ships, designed to conquer and explore, had never before encountered a world like this. The beings on board had traveled across countless galaxies, surveying planets, cataloging species, and assessing the strength of civilizations. But now they were here, looking at Earth, a planet unlike any they had ever seen before. At first, the aliens were confused. Earth was massive, too massive for a single species to survive on. There were jungles, deserts, mountains, and oceans that stretched as far as the eye could see. The planet's sheer size was overwhelming, yet there was something even more puzzling. The humans. The aliens had heard the rumors about humanity. They had heard that humans were weak, fragile, and easily destroyed. But what they didn't expect was the evidence before them. They were watching a planet brimming with life, every corner filled with creatures thriving in ways that seemed impossible. From their ships, the aliens could see humans moving through all kinds of environments. In the vast deserts where the sun scorched the land and sandstorms raged without mercy, humans survived. They crossed endless stretches of barren land, not with advanced machines, but with nothing more than their own ingenuity and willpower. The aliens' commanders were silent as they watched the humans' endurance in the extreme heat. How could a species with such fragile bodies survive here? They had barely scratched the surface of their investigation, and already they were dumbfounded. Down below, a group of humans trekked across the desert. Their clothing, light but protective, seemed inadequate against the intense heat. Yet the humans were unfazed. They had a purpose. They knew where to find water, where to take shelter when the temperature soared, and how to navigate a world that would easily consume them. They didn't have the luxury of high-tech gadgets or automatic survival tools, but they had something else, an understanding of their world, something the aliens didn't expect. The alien ships continued to circle above, watching the humans with growing curiosity. The humans' movements were deliberate, calculated. They weren't just surviving, they were thriving. Every step they took was evidence of their adaptability, their ability to push beyond what the aliens thought was possible. The next part of the investigation took the aliens to the frozen poles of Earth. Here, temperatures dropped so low that many species on other planets couldn't even survive for a second. But humans were here too, existing in these harsh frozen landscapes. They had established research stations, not as fortresses, but as living, working habitats. Their equipment, though basic compared to the technology the aliens possessed, was enough to keep them alive in one of the coldest places in the galaxy. As the aliens observed, they couldn't understand how humans managed to withstand these extreme conditions. It wasn't just their technology, it was their biology. Humans seemed capable of adapting to anything. Even in the bitter cold, they didn't freeze. Their bodies had learned to generate warmth and sustain life in ways the aliens had never seen. They weren't just surviving, they were thriving. Even in the worst conditions. Aboard the alien ships, the officers began to discuss what they were seeing. They had known humans were intelligent, but this was something else entirely. The aliens began to realize that humans weren't just another species, they were something special. This planet was a test for them, a test that they had somehow passed. No matter the odds. In the forests and jungles of Earth, humans could be found too. These areas were filled with dense trees, thick underbrush, and wild creatures that could easily overpower a weaker species. Yet, humans navigated these jungles with ease. Their tools weren't advanced, but they were smart. They knew how to trap, how to hunt, how to find shelter and food where others would perish. The jungles, which should have been dangerous and deadly, were merely another environment where humans had learned to survive. The aliens observed as a human group moved through the thick forest, using only their hands and simple tools to survive. Their bodies seemed out of place in the wilds of the jungle, yet they adapted. The humans knew how to move quietly, how to read the environment, and how to take only what they needed. They weren't invincible, but they were survivors, and they were doing it in ways that baffled the aliens. The aliens' initial beliefs about humans were being shattered, piece by piece. They had thought that humanity was weak, that they were just a passing species on a planet too big for them. But the evidence on the ground told a different story. These humans were tough, adaptable, and resourceful in ways the aliens had never expected. As they watched, the aliens' respect for humans grew. Their survival wasn't just about strength or power, it was about something deeper, something that the aliens couldn't quite put their finger on. But one thing was clear: these humans, on a planet as massive and unforgiving as Earth, were more than just survivors. They were masters of survival. The commanders of the alien fleet exchanged looks, a silent understanding passing between them. They had underestimated humanity, and now they had a new mission: to understand exactly how these humans managed to survive on a planet this big. They knew they were facing a challenge unlike anything they had ever encountered before: the great desert the alien ships had circled Earth for days now, but what they witnessed in the desert left them astounded. They had assumed that the vast, empty wastelands of Earth would be a death sentence for any creature, yet humans seemed to flourish there. The desert stretched endlessly, with nothing but sand and the harsh sun above. To the aliens, it was a place of ruin, a place where life couldn't possibly survive. Yet humans had found a way to live here, and not just survive but thrive. From their vantage point in space, the aliens watched as a small group of humans moved across the barren land. They were walking, not in a rush but with purpose. Their faces were covered to protect themselves from the unrelenting sun, but their movements were calm. The aliens could see the sweat on their brows, the exhaustion in their eyes, yet they didn't stop. They kept walking, step after step, seemingly with no fear. The aliens were baffled. They had seen other species in similar conditions on other planets, creatures that would have perished within hours in the desert heat. Yet here were the humans, moving steadily through the arid wasteland. How was this possible? The aliens were accustomed to high-tech survival gear, machines that could regulate heat and provide shelter in even the most unforgiving environments. But the humans were different. They had none of that advanced technology. They had only what they brought with them and their natural instinct to survive. The humans paused at a distance from an oasis, their faces hard with determination. They had been traveling for hours, their water supplies dwindling, but they showed no signs of panic. The aliens watched, fascinated, as the humans used a basic map, calculated their route, and found a path through the desert's endless stretch of sand. There was no rushing, no frantic movements. They moved deliberately, knowing exactly what to do to conserve their energy. The desert was not their enemy. It was their teacher. As they reached the oasis, the humans took a moment to rest and drink. But even then, they didn't waste a single drop of water. Their water containers were simple, yet efficient, designed for minimal waste. The aliens had watched civilizations on other planets destroy themselves over resources, fighting wars over things like water. Yet here were these humans, surviving in one of the most water-scarce places on Earth with nothing but their ingenuity and understanding of the environment. In the distance, the aliens could see more humans coming from another direction. These humans were not as fortunate to have reached the oasis yet. They were visibly struggling. Their steps were slower, their bodies trembling with exhaustion. But still, they pushed forward, determined to reach their destination. The aliens, from above, felt something they hadn't expected: respect. These humans, despite the odds, kept going. They didn't have the luxury of advanced technology to get them through, but they had something more powerful: their sheer will to survive. Of the humans in the group, a woman had fallen behind, her feet dragging in the sand. The others noticed, and without a word, two of them slowed their pace, offering her support. They shared what little water they had left, keeping her going until they could reach the oasis. The aliens couldn't understand it. There was no backup system, no high-tech health devices to assist the woman. But the humans had something that machines couldn't replace: compassion. A sense of unity that kept them alive even when the desert tried to take them down. The aliens observed this, and for the first time, they began to realize that humanity's survival wasn't just about the environment. It was about something much deeper, a strength born from their very nature. As the group reached the oasis, the woman collapsed, her body finally giving way to the exhaustion, but her companions didn't leave her behind. They stayed with her, making sure she drank enough water to recover, resting until she was strong enough to continue. The aliens saw this and realized that the key to human survival wasn't just in their ability to endure, it was in their unwavering support for each other. Where other species would have seen weakness, humans saw strength in working together, in lifting each other up. The aliens were witnessing something they had never seen before on any planet they had visited. Humans weren't just surviving in the desert, they were conquering it. Not through technology, but through unity, intelligence, and compassion. This realization hit the aliens hard. They had underestimated humanity, thinking them weak and fragile. But now, they could see the truth. Humans were a force to be reckoned with, capable of surviving and thriving in the harshest environments. As the group of humans continued their journey through the desert, the aliens took note. This wasn't just about surviving the desert, it was about the human spirit, the resilience to never give up, no matter the odds. The desert had tested them, but instead of breaking them, it had made them stronger. The aliens could only watch in awe as the humans pushed forward, proving that no matter how big the planet, no matter how difficult the challenge, humanity would always find a way to survive. The aliens' mission was clear now. They had to understand how humans did it, how they could adapt to such an extreme environment and continue to survive. The mystery of Earth was unfolding before them, and with every passing moment, the aliens were becoming more and more intrigued by the humans who had conquered this desert without even realizing it. The alien ships, still hovering in orbit above Earth, shifted focus. The desert had shown them humanity's willpower, but now they turned their attention to a new mystery: the vast oceans that covered most of the planet. The aliens had known about Earth's oceans from their data, but seeing them up close was a different matter entirely. The oceans stretched beyond the horizon, a world of crushing depths, immense pressure, and dangerous creatures. For any species, even the most powerful, surviving here seemed impossible. Yet, the aliens had learned that humans didn't shy away from challenges. Instead, they embraced them. Far below, in the deep, cold waters, humans were exploring the unknown. The aliens watched as a human submersible descended deeper into the ocean. The submersible was not as advanced as their own technologies, yet it was still capable of withstanding the pressure of the ocean depths. The aliens, knowing the crushing force of the ocean, couldn't understand how the human vessel could survive. They had seen other species attempt to explore the oceans of distant planets, only for their ships to be crushed by the immense pressure. Yet here, on Earth, humans were diving deeper and deeper into a world that should have been hostile to life. Submersibles' lights pierced the darkness, revealing an underwater world that seemed both alien and familiar. The crew inside moved with confidence, guiding the submersible further into the depths. The aliens studied every detail from their vantage point above. The humans used basic equipment, relying on their understanding of the ocean's mysteries, rather than relying on advanced technology to protect them. There was no automatic system to ensure their survival. Instead, the humans relied on knowledge passed down through generations, a knowledge of the sea that allowed them to adapt, to thrive in a world that should have been too dangerous. The pressure of the water was so intense that most creatures could not survive it. The deep sea environment was one of the most unforgiving places on Earth, yet the humans did not falter. They didn't panic. They simply continued their mission, focused on the task at hand. The aliens observed as the submersible sank further into the abyss, their sensors tracking every movement. How were the humans doing this? How could their fragile bodies endure the crushing weight of the water, the cold that could freeze other species in an instant? As the submersible continued its descent, the aliens saw the human crew interact with the environment in a way that amazed them. They didn't just survive, they thrived. The humans had found a way to live in this hostile world, using their knowledge of the ocean currents, the temperature differences, and the vast ecosystem beneath the surface. The aliens had never seen such adaptability before. Humans weren't just explorers, they were conquerors of the deep. The human submersible reached a part of the ocean that had never been explored before by outsiders. The deeper it went, the more alien the environment became. Strange creatures, glowing with eerie light, swam around the submersible, their shapes both beautiful and terrifying. The aliens watched as the human crew interacted with the creatures, not with fear, but with respect. The humans studied the creatures, cataloged them, and marveled at the wonders of the deep. It was clear now that humans were not afraid of the ocean. They saw it as a place to learn, to discover, and to survive. The submersible made its way through the deep trenches, where the pressure was so intense that most life forms would have been crushed in an instant. Yet the humans kept going. They didn't just survive the deep ocean. They explored it, learned its secrets, and understood how to adapt. They weren't just in the ocean for survival. They were there to conquer it, to prove that no matter how harsh the environment, humanity could overcome it. From their position above, the aliens were speechless. They had traveled across the universe, seen countless planets and species, but they had never seen anything like this. The depth of the ocean was supposed to be an insurmountable barrier, but to humans, it was just another challenge to face. They had adapted, they had learned, and they had thrived. The oceans, which should have been their enemy, had become just another part of the world they lived in. The aliens began to realize that humanity's ability to survive was not just about their physical strength or technology, it was about their drive to understand and adapt to their environment. The deep ocean, which should have swallowed them whole, had only revealed more of humanity's resilience. These humans, with their simple tools and unwavering determination, had become masters of the deep. And for the first time, the aliens began to see the humans for what they truly were, not weak or fragile, but a species capable of conquering the most dangerous places in the universe. As the submersible surfaced, the aliens saw the humans once again step out of the depths, unharmed and triumphant. They had survived the impossible. And as the humans climbed back onto the land, they carried with them the knowledge that no place on Earth, no matter how dangerous, could stop them. The aliens now understood that Earth's oceans, like the desert before them, were just another environment for humanity to master. Nothing would stand in their way. The frozen wilderness, the alien ships now turned their focus to Earth's polar regions. The vast frozen wastelands that stretched across the planet's poles had always been seen as one of the most inhospitable places in the galaxy. The cold here was intense, a biting chill that froze everything in its path. The aliens had seen this kind of environment on other planets, and they knew that only the toughest of species could survive in such conditions. But they had yet to see what humanity was capable of in this freezing world. From their vantage point in space, the aliens observed as human explorers set out across the icy tundra. They saw the thick snowstorms whip through the air, the icy winds that cut through clothing and skin alike. The temperature here was far below freezing, colder than anything the aliens had ever encountered. They watched as the humans, dressed in layers of fur and protective gear, moved through the snow with purpose. Unlike the other creatures they had encountered on different planets, these humans didn't flinch at the cold, they embraced it. The aliens observed as the human group trudged through the blizzard, their faces shielded from the wind, their breath freezing in the air. They were moving slowly, deliberately, conserving their energy as they pushed forward. The cold was unforgiving, but the humans seemed unaffected. They had been trained for this, prepared to face the harshest conditions. As the aliens continued to watch, they saw the humans set up camp in the middle of the storm, their tents pitched with expert precision. There was no panic, no fear. They simply worked together to create shelter, knowing they could not afford to waste a single moment. The aliens were stunned. They had assumed that this kind of environment would break humanity. They had expected to see the humans struggling, succumbing to the extreme cold, their bodies quickly shutting down under the pressure of the elements. Instead, the humans had turned the frozen wilderness into a place of survival. Using nothing but their knowledge of the land and their resilience, the group worked together to set up a fire inside their shelter, their breath visible in the icy air as they prepared food. The aliens watched as the humans shared what little resources they had, carefully rationing their supplies. The cold might have been merciless, but the humans were even more so. Their focus was unwavering, their determination unmatched. They weren't just surviving. They were thriving in the most extreme of conditions. Later that night, as the storm raged outside, the humans huddled together inside their shelter. They spoke in low voices, not out of fear, but out of a shared understanding of the challenges they faced. There was no sense of helplessness, no sense of dread. The humans were comfortable in the knowledge that they had control over their environment, that they could endure whatever the cold threw at them. It was this spirit, this unbreakable will, that left the aliens in awe. The next morning, the storm had subsided, but the temperature had dropped even further. The aliens could see that the humans were not slowing down. They didn't rest. They kept moving, marching forward through the snow-covered wilderness, their footprints disappearing behind them as if they were never there. With each step, the humans seemed to defy the cold, the ice, the vast emptiness of the frozen world. They had a goal, a purpose, and nothing was going to stop them from reaching it. As they continued their journey, the humans encountered dangerous wildlife creatures adapted to the cold, with thick fur coats and razor-sharp claws. But the humans were not intimidated. They knew how to avoid danger, how to move without disturbing the beasts that roamed the icy tundra. They had respect for the environment, but they were not afraid of it. They knew how to survive here, just as they had learned to survive in the desert and the ocean. The aliens were watching all of this unfold with growing respect. They had thought of humans as a weak species, fragile in the face of nature's fury. But now, after witnessing their survival in the harshest conditions imaginable, they were starting to see the truth. Humans weren't just surviving, they were thriving, mastering environments that other species couldn't even hope to endure. As the human explorers reached the summit of a frozen mountain, the aliens saw something they hadn't expected. The humans weren't just content with survival. They were exploring, pushing the boundaries of what was possible, uncovering the secrets of the world around them. They weren't simply living in the cold, they were uncovering it, conquering it. At that moment, the aliens understood. The key to human survival wasn't just their ability to endure, it was their unrelenting drive to explore, to conquer, and to adapt. The frozen wilderness had tried to break them, but the humans had turned it into another challenge, another place where they could prove their resilience. There was no environment too harsh, no world too unforgiving for humanity to conquer. And as the aliens watched the humans continue their journey through the frozen wastes, they realized that this was the true power of humanity, their ability to survive, to adapt, and to thrive no matter where they were, no matter what challenge they faced. The frozen wilderness had shown the aliens what humans were capable of, and it was a lesson they would not soon forget. The secrets of human strength. The alien fleet had been watching Earth for weeks now, observing the humans in all their environments, from the scorching deserts to the crushing depths of the oceans and the freezing tundra. Each time, they had seen humans push the boundaries of survival, each time leaving the aliens more astonished than the last. But it wasn't just their physical endurance that fascinated the aliens, it was something deeper, something they hadn't anticipated. The aliens had thought that survival was simply a matter of strength, but humans had shown them that it was more than that. It was about adaptability, intelligence, and most of all, unity. In the heart of Earth's most dangerous terrains, the humans weren't alone. They worked together, relying on each other's skills, supporting one another in ways that allowed them to thrive where others would have perished. The aliens had seen many species before, but none worked with the kind of teamwork the humans displayed. It wasn't just about individuals doing their best. It was about all of them coming together to ensure survival. They were a family, and each member had their role, their purpose, their contribution to the group's survival. This was the key to their strength, the thing the aliens had overlooked. The humans didn't just survive harsh environments, they conquered them. The desert, the ocean, the frozen tundra, and even the dense jungles were all obstacles, yes, but they were not threats that the humans could not face. The aliens had assumed that Earth was a world where survival was random, where only the strong could make it. They hadn't understood that humans could adapt so fully to their world, not just by evolving biological traits, but by understanding the environment, learning from it, and then using that knowledge to shape their survival strategies. The humans were not passive participants in their environment. They were active, engaged, and above all, clever. It wasn't just that humans could endure. It was how they endured that fascinated the aliens. They used their minds to solve problems, not just relying on brute force. In the desert, they studied the patterns of the wind and the heat, finding shelter in places others might miss. In the ocean, they read the currents, understanding how to navigate the most treacherous waters. In the frozen wastes, they studied the weather, predicting when storms would arrive and preparing for them in advance. These were not survival skills learned by chance. They were the result of careful study, keen observation, and constant adaptation. Humans didn't just survive by luck, they survived because they were constantly learning, constantly improving. But there was something even more powerful at play, something the aliens hadn't realized until they saw it firsthand. Humans had a drive, a spirit, a refusal to give up, even when things seemed impossible. The cold, the heat, the depths of the sea, none of these things could break them. They didn't give up when they were tired, hungry, or cold. They didn't stop when they were faced with overwhelming odds. Instead, they pushed forward, using every tool at their disposal, every ounce of their strength, both physical and mental, to continue. When faced with obstacles, humans didn't just accept them, they found ways to overcome them. The aliens watched as a human group, stranded on a mountain top in the middle of a blizzard, faced what seemed like certain death. The wind howled, the snow piled up in thick drifts, and the cold was so intense that even the toughest of creatures would have been frozen solid within minutes. But the humans didn't panic, they didn't run. They gathered together, using their knowledge of the mountain to create a shelter, starting a fire with nothing but the simplest tools. The aliens watched in awe as the humans did what they did. They adapted. They turned the blizzard into an opportunity for survival, not an obstacle. The humans worked together in silence, each person knowing their role, each movement purposeful and precise. One person collected wood, another dug into the snow to reinforce the shelter, while a third ensured that the fire remained strong. There was no leader shouting orders, no individual heroism. There was only the strength of the group, each person contributing in their own way to ensure that everyone survived. And it worked. The shelter held, the fire burned, and the humans survived another night in the freezing storm. What the aliens didn't understand was that this spirit wasn't limited to a single group. It was a part of humanity's nature, a defining trait that extended beyond any one person or group. It was a shared strength, a collective will that tied them all together. Whether in the desert, the ocean, or the frozen wilderness, humans were bound by a sense of unity, a shared purpose to survive, and to never give up. This was the true secret of human strength, not just their ability to adapt to every environment, but their unbreakable will to keep going, to keep learning, and to never let the challenges of the world defeat them. The aliens had misunderstood humanity. They had thought that physical strength and advanced technology were the keys to survival. But now they saw that the real strength of humanity lay in their ability to think, to collaborate, and to push forward in the face of the most unimaginable odds. As the human groups continued to thrive across Earth's toughest environments, the aliens began to understand. They had thought that humanity was a weak species, fragile and vulnerable, but what they had witnessed was the opposite. Humanity was not only surviving, humanity was thriving, and it was doing so because of the strength they found in each other, in their unity, and in their ability to adapt, learn, and grow. The aliens were left in silence, contemplating what they had just learned. The Earth was full of surprises, and humanity had shown them that no matter how harsh the world, no matter how big the challenge, there was nothing humans couldn't overcome. The turning point as the aliens continued to observe Earth, they grew more and more convinced that humanity was unlike anything they had ever encountered. It was not just the environments that humans survived. It was the way they responded to adversity, the way they kept going when the odds were stacked against them. The aliens had seen species before that were tough, capable of surviving in hostile worlds, but humanity was different. They weren't just surviving. They were thriving, and the aliens could not ignore it any longer. The alien fleet had been silently observing a small human settlement in the midst of a storm. The wind howled and the rain poured down in sheets, making it impossible for most creatures to survive, but the humans were different. As the storm raged, they moved quickly, securing their homes, ensuring that their food and supplies were protected. They didn't wait for the storm to pass, they took action, working together as a single unit to overcome the challenge that nature had thrown at them. The aliens watched in stunned silence as the humans adapted, turning what should have been a disaster into just another obstacle to overcome. Then, something unexpected happened. A sudden flood surged through the settlement, sweeping away homes, crops, and everything in its path. The aliens watched as the humans didn't panic. They didn't fall apart. Instead, they worked together, forming human chains to pull people out of the rushing water, using whatever they had to build makeshift barriers and prevent the flood from destroying more of their home. They showed no fear, only resolve and a sense of duty to one another. The storm had given them no mercy, but the humans gave no mercy to the storm either. It was at that moment that the aliens realized the true nature of humanity's strength. It wasn't about brute force or advanced technology. It wasn't about being the strongest or the fastest. It was about the human spirit. The humans could face anything, the fiercest storm, the harshest cold, the most unforgiving terrain, and they would not give up. Their strength lay not in their individual power, but in their collective will to survive and protect one another. The aliens could only watch as the humans rebuilt their homes, their community, their lives, with nothing but their hands and their hearts. The flood had not broken them. It had only made them stronger. As the waters receded, the humans gathered their resources, shared what little they had left, and set to work. They were not defeated. They were not broken. They were human. And that meant they would keep going no matter what. On the alien ships above, the commanders were in quiet discussion. They had watched this unfold in silence, and each of them could feel something shift within them. They had come to Earth expecting to find a weak, fragile species that would be easy to conquer. Instead, they found a species that defied all odds. A species that thrived in the face of disaster. They saw that humanity wasn't just surviving Earth. Humanity was shaping Earth to its will. The planet itself was no match for the relentless drive of humanity. The more they saw, the more the aliens realized that humanity had something they had not expected, a spirit that couldn't be crushed. As the aliens watched the humans rebuild, something began to change in them. They had initially planned to observe Earth, to study its species and environments, but now they found themselves learning something far more valuable than they had anticipated. They had come with the belief that they were the superior beings, that they held the power to determine the fate of any species. But what they were witnessing on Earth challenged that belief. Humanity had a strength that wasn't just physical. It was mental, it was emotional. It was an unyielding determination to never give up, no matter how great the challenge. The aliens began to understand. Humanity wasn't simply surviving. They were thriving in ways that defied every expectation. They didn't wait for things to get better. They made them better. They didn't wait for the storm to pass. They met it head-on and emerged victorious. It was this unrelenting drive, this refusal to be beaten, that set humanity apart from every species the aliens had ever encountered. As the humans finished their work, rebuilding their homes and securing their future, the alien commanders knew one thing for certain: they had underestimated humanity. They had thought they could study them, perhaps even manipulate them. But now they realized that humanity was not to be controlled. They were to be respected. They were a force to be reckoned with, a species that had found a way to survive and thrive against all odds. And as the aliens turned their attention back to their mission, they knew that they had learned something important. The humans might not have been the strongest species in the galaxy, but they had something more powerful: the will to keep fighting, the strength to keep going, and the heart to keep surviving. The aliens would never forget the lessons they had learned on Earth, and they knew that they had witnessed something extraordinary, something that no other species had ever shown them before. And it was this understanding that changed everything. For the first time, the aliens truly saw humanity for what they were: resilient, relentless, and unstoppable. A new understanding. The alien fleet, once circling Earth in silent judgment, now hovered in stillness, the weight of what they had witnessed settling on their collective minds. They had come to study Earth, to measure humanity against the vastness of the galaxy, to see if this seemingly fragile species was worthy of attention. What they had found, however, was beyond anything they could have anticipated. The humans had proven themselves not through sheer physical strength, but through an unshakable resilience and a drive to survive that no environment, no matter how extreme, could destroy. As the humans continued to rebuild after the storm, the alien commanders knew they had underestimated the very essence of humanity. The aliens had watched as Earth's natural forces, storms, floods, deserts, oceans, and frozen wastelands had tried to break the humans, but each time, humanity had stood strong. They had seen humans band together in the face of adversity, using their collective strength and intelligence to adapt and overcome. It wasn't just about survival anymore. It was about the relentless will to never give up, to keep pushing forward no matter how impossible the task. Humanity wasn't just enduring Earth's challenges, they were mastering them. And the aliens could not deny that this strength was something they could not ignore. The aliens had once seen themselves as the superior force, capable of studying and controlling the outcome of any encounter. But now, as they observed the humans and their extraordinary resilience, they realized that there was a strength in unity, in perseverance, in the human spirit that no advanced technology or power could ever replicate. The humans had faced death, they had faced the elements, they had faced a world that should have crushed them, but instead, they had risen. And the aliens knew that they had not seen this kind of spirit anywhere else in the galaxy. The fleet commanders had gathered in their ship, discussing their findings. The usual confidence that came with being the dominant species was now replaced with a sense of humility. The humans had shown them that strength was not merely about weaponry, technology, or physical might. It was about the will to endure, to adapt, and to fight for what was important. The humans didn't just survive in the harshest conditions, they thrived in them. And this was the true measure of their power. As the alien fleet prepared to depart, the humans below remained unaware of the profound shift in the alien leader's perspective. The humans had done nothing extraordinary by their own standards. They were simply living their lives, surviving the challenges of their world. But to the aliens, this was a revelation. They had been looking for something to conquer, something to study, something to exploit. Instead, they had found a species that would not bend, a species that would not break, no matter how hard the universe tried to make them. The aliens, as they began to leave Earth's orbit, were left with a new understanding of humanity. They had seen strength in most unexpected places, in the human will, in their unity, in their ability to adapt and thrive in environments that should have been their end. The humans were not invincible, but they were something far greater. They were a force of nature, something that no alien race had ever encountered before. And as the alien fleet moved away from Earth, there was one thing they knew for certain. They had witnessed something extraordinary. For the first time, the aliens didn't see humans as a species to be controlled or conquered. They saw them as equals, a species with their own unique strength, a species worthy of respect. The humans had earned their place in the galaxy, not through might, but through the power of their spirit, their adaptability, and their unyielding will to survive. The alien commanders looked down at Earth, knowing that this planet and its people were something special, something they could never hope to defeat, but could only admire. The fleet disappeared into the depths of space, leaving Earth behind. But the lesson they had learned would stay with them forever. The humans had shown them that survival wasn't just about being the strongest or the most advanced. It was about the heart, the unity, and the courage to keep going when everything else seemed impossible. And as they traveled on, the aliens knew that Earth, with its resilient humans, would forever be remembered as the place where they learned the true meaning of strength. The humans had proven to them that no matter how big the planet, no matter how harsh the environment, there was nothing that could stop them. They had witnessed the power of humanity, and it had changed them forever.